G'day folks, welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to answer the question, is it wrong to mock and to make fun of false teachers? Is it wrong to mock and to make fun of false teachers? And the reason why I'm going to answer this question is because in one of my previous videos just recently, I was criticized by a few people in the comments section for making fun of and laughing at somebody who fell down at a Hinn meeting and his face landed on another man's bum. His face is in his bum. It rubs in a little bit more. Did you see that? And I was laughing at it and pointed it out in the video, and a few people who were just expressing their heart on the matter thought that it was wrong for me to laugh at that and to mock these people for that. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity to create a video and to answer the question, is it wrong to mock false teachers and those that follow them? And I want to say that there is a time and a place for mocking false teachers and making fun of people like that person in the video. And I want to go through a number of passages of scripture to support my position. I'm not saying that we should always mock these people, and there is a time and a place where we shouldn't mock people, but I think at the same time there is a time and a place for mocking these people. Now, I'm going to go through a fair few scriptures to support this, but the first one is in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18, beginning at verse 26. And the context of this passage is Elijah has challenged the false prophets of Baal to set up a sacrifice and to call down a fire from heaven, to call upon Baal to send down fire. And of course, they kept on going and they were calling upon Baal, but nothing was happening. And Elijah began to mock them. Let me read it to you. It says in verse 26, "Then they took the ox which was given them, and they prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered, and they limped about the altar which they had made. Now it happened at noon that Elijah mocked them, and said, Call out with a loud voice, for he is a god. Either he is occupied, or relieving himself, or is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and needs to be awakened. So they cried with a loud voice and gashed themselves according to their custom with swords and lances until blood gushed out on them." Now I want you to notice here that Elijah is clearly mocking these people. He's mocking these prophets of Baal. And when it says maybe your God is relieving himself, it's really talking about maybe your God is sitting on the toilet. So he's really using a bit of crude language and he's mocking these false prophets of Baal. Another good example is in Isaiah chapter 44, verses 16 to 19, where Isaiah is mocking people for growing a tree, then cutting the tree down, burning some of it to make a fire, using it to make a fire and to keep themselves warm and to cook on it, and then taking the rest of it and fashioning an idol out of it and bowing down before it and worshipping it. And he mocks them for this. Another really good example is Psalm chapter 52. And let me say this before we get to Psalm 52. That example, I think of where Isaiah is mocking these idolaters, I think is a brilliant example to support me laughing at that man who fell down in the Hinn service, because Hinn had convinced him, or they were faking it, either one, or they just knew it was false and were doing it anyway. But they had been convinced that Jesus was physically there on the platform, and they were bowing before this invisible Jesus that really wasn't there. So that's a great, I think, comparison to what Isaiah is saying with this wood. They've chopped down this tree and they've made a fire with it to warm themselves and to cook their food, and with the rest of it, they're making an idol and bowing down before it. And that was really very similar to what was happening at that Hinn meeting. But let's look at Psalm chapter 52. Psalm chapter 52. And I think this is another really good passage And really the context is the righteous mocking the wicked when they face destruction. Let me read this to you, beginning at verse 3. Psalm 52, beginning at verse 3. It says, "You love evil more than good, falsehood more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. But God will break you down forever. He will snatch you up and tear you away from your tent and uproot you from the land of the living, so that the righteous will see and fear and will laugh at him, saying, Behold, the man who would not set God as his strength, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and was strong in his destruction." Notice here in this passage that the righteous laughs at the wicked when he faces the judgment of God. And really, I don't think there's any way around this. It's very clear. It says that the righteous will laugh at him, will laugh at the wicked when he is judged by God. I don't see any way around this passage. This is a clear example where the righteous mock and laugh at the wicked, saying, Behold, the man who would not trust in God. And we'll come to something similar taunts as we go through the rest of this video. But another one I want to look at is Proverbs chapter 1. Proverbs chapter 1, and this is where wisdom is personified as a woman crying out in the street, saying, "O you simple ones, come unto me." And in response to those that reject wisdom, Proverbs says this. It says, Proverbs 1, beginning at verse 24, it says, "Because I called and you refused, I stretched out my hand and no one paid attention, and you neglected all my counsel and were not willing to accept my reproof, I will also laugh at your disaster. I will mock when your dread comes." So you see here that wisdom mocks at those who rejected her pleas, and then disaster comes upon them. It says that wisdom laughs at them and mocks them. One more that I want to look at is Psalm chapter 2, and this is where God mocks the unrighteous. Psalm chapter 2, beginning at verse 1, it says, "Why do the nations rage and the people meditate on a vain thing? The kings of the earth take their stand and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, Let us tear their fetters apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord mocks them." Notice here that he who sits in the heavens laughs and mocks them. This is really God laughing and mocking at, say, all the Democrats and those wicked people in authority that want to destroy the church and bring an end to Christianity. He who sits in the heavens laughs and mocks at them. So there's another example where God himself is laughing and mocking the wicked. One last passage that I'll reference and talk about is Isaiah chapter 14. And this is a passage that talks about the fall of the king of Babylon. And it says that the people will take up a taunt against the king of Babylon. This is the passage where the king of Babylon is referred to as Lucifer. And some people interpret it to be a reference not only to the king of Babylon, but also a reference to Satan himself. And there, when you read it, you'll see that it's set out as poetic literature. And verse 4 of chapter 14 clearly says that the righteous will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. It uses the word taunt, and the whole thing is sarcastic mockery against the king of Babylon, who said, "I will ascend above the stars and above the throne of the Most High." And in fact, the word Lucifer is actually not a name for Satan. The word Lucifer is Latin, and it just simply means morning star. And so really it's a mockery saying, "Oh, morning star," as if you thought you were this great morning star, but really you'll be brought down to the ground. It's a taunt, and it's a sarcastic mockery of the king of Babylon, and possibly as well of Satan himself on the day of destruction. So I see, no problems mocking false teachers in certain situations. I think there's a time and a place for it, and I think sometimes it can be effective. Take David Wood's YouTube channel, it's gone now, But that was a very effective YouTube channel, and it was filled with mockery against Islam and the things that they believe and teach and the hadiths and so forth. And I thought it was an incredibly effective YouTube channel. And I think early on, years ago, Sam Shimon would do live videos as well, and they would really mock the stupidity of what they believed. And I think that there is a time and a place for it. But we also need to use wisdom and to be careful that we don't mock people in the wrong situation, in the wrong circumstances. There's discernment that's needed to be exercised. But I think in the video that I made, I thought it was perfectly fine for me to laugh at that man. And I think it was important that I did so that people can see the stupidity of what was going on. A bit like the emperor's clothes. Everybody thought, you know, that the emperor was wearing clothes, and only the wise and intelligent could see the clothes. And really, they were the whole thing is a mockery of these people who think they are wise. They think they are smart, but really, there was no clothes, and these people were incredibly stupid. And it took that child or those children to point it out. So I don't have a problem. Elijah, he clearly mocked the prophets of Baal. Isaiah mocked the idolaters. We see wisdom mocking. We see the righteous mocking the wicked when they face the judgment of God. And we see as well God mocking the wicked nations. And we see in Isaiah 14 that the righteous will take up a mocking taunt against the king of Babylon and also possibly Satan himself. I hope you've liked this video. If you have, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. Hit the bell notification button. I'll see you in the comments section, and you'll see me in my next video.